Morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. That's better. Somehow, between the first and the second, you managed to get some coffee. That's pretty good. Now that's a hard act to follow, Viru. Well done. That was. I have my developer's envy on that one. I haven't got to that level of code in a while, but maybe pull it up a little bit and talk about what SAP does with startups. So, all right. Is it better up here, or I feel like I'm happier down here than on this holier than thou dais? All right. Ayaz Kazi, also known as Chief Troublemaker at SAP. All the crazy things, all the nutty jobs come my way. So one of which is scaling our platform and getting startups. Scaling the platform, first of all, innovation inside SAP from zero to you'll see where it's at, and then helping startups grow on our platform. And we'll get to that. So I'm going to talk about two things today that you keep in mind. One is how to scale innovation inside a large company, since we are at scale. And the second is how to take startups and help them scale to work with enterprises. Not just us, but everybody else. And how to work along that. Why did I talk about big data at scale? That was the title of the presentation. And we'll get to that in a minute. Right? So let's take a look at the first title of this presentation or this slide was transformations, future transformations. And if you look at some of these predicted life, augmented reality, nanotechnology, and holograms, you suddenly realize it's actually not, the future is here. These are about to scale. You know, the work that Stanford is doing in nanomedicine, which is being able to, and this is closest to my heart, they're being able to inject in the tumor itself, in the cancer cells itself. So this is a more directed treatment than chemotherapy, but they're doing this based on all the data that they can collect from clinical data, from historical data, and the patient data that they're able to put together. And this requires a whole lot of data crunching to be able to apply this in real time to a patient. Right? These are very important things to understand. Holograms, predicted life. You've seen the Google driving car that keeps getting better and better. This picture here is supposed to talk about your kids reading maps and books while the car is driving itself. Nice. And it might seem futuristic, but it's already here. What's needed for all of this, for all of these, and the reason we put this up, and you can put many more transformations. What's needed for all of this? You need a whole lot of data to be collected and managed and stored and analyzed and processed. And so is that what we are calling big data these days? Right? So I didn't build this up. I let the cat out of the bag. When you're talking for big data at scale or at enterprise scale or at large scale, the term itself, I think I kicked off a big data conference a year ago saying there's no such thing as big data. And I got the organizers really worried. But, and there's actually an even better anecdote, and I can't take any claim to it, but it was a brilliant tweet, I thought, for LinkedIn endorsements. Said, you really want to screw up somebody's career? Endorse them for waterfall method and SOA. I thought it was brilliant. You know what? In a few years, big data will be part of that as well. So keep that in mind. It's a great term to rally around. It's a great term from a concept perspective, but at the end of the day, it's a marketing term. Right? And what is key there is what are the components, what are the concepts behind it? And that's what I wanted to spend some time when you start thinking about data at scale. Right? How deep is the data? How granular, how many levels deep are you storing the data? How granular is it? And at what level of granularity are you storing your data? And I can go into details. I can spend probably a day on this entire slide. So I'm going to give you the 2-minute version given I have a clock running against me, right? So how broad is your data? People, there's Gartner has the famous 3 V's of big data. Broad equals, in some ways, also the variety, whether it's structured, unstructured, other aspects of it. Binary, blob, all of these come there. But think about, I started my life as a C++ programmer, even before that Pascal. then moved on to Windows, we had these things called INI files that sat on our machines, other people's machines. And these are in all, in an entire large organization. Pick an organization of 100,000 people. You might have, if you collect all the INI files that exist for people who are working on that, you might have, 10 meg, 20 meg? It's not big data in any shape or form. But the way it was structured, the way it was hierarchical, we could, especially there was an application I worked on in the financial services industry where you could, a local INI file would override what was there for the firm-wide INI file, and that would override what was there for the net-wide INI file, and that would override what was there for the global INI file. So you could do your setting based on now. How do you manage all of that? If you want one page to be able to manage this and deliver context in real time, you have to have a way to be able to do this. So the key is across all of these aspects, and we talked about deep, we talked about broad. Simple is exactly what it sounds. Are you able to store the unit, the simplest unit of data, and derive everything else that can be derived from it on the fly in real time? Think about what that means in the database world, no aggregates. Think about what that means in the data warehouse world. If you extend it to that, no real physical data warehouses and snapshots, everything is virtual on the fly. You build it on the fly, right? And for that, you require a change in design, a change in the kind of technology that is available. And we'll get to that. All speeds. I've fallen prey to this all the time. We talk about real time, and yes, the application and the platform we bring out is largely about real time, but it's also important for the data at rest, data in motion. What's the historical data? Where does it sit? How do you manage it? How do you store? How do you process it? And when do you bring it in when you need? How do you manage data across all the speeds? Right? And interactive. I think this is key. This is key and gets even more key as we start looking at the next range of buzzwords that are coming out, like IoT. These are all important things, right? In Internet of Things. At the same time, they're buzzwords. But how quickly can I answer the question so that I can ask the next question right away? And this is now, today we are really talking about humans asking the questions. And maybe humans asking the questions to machines, but what happens when you get machines to machines? Right? And you're making, now I don't want you to go into the whole Minority Report kind of things, but there's a lot of good things that can come out of machines talking to machines and answering questions and being able to act on some of the things that we saw in the first slide. Those transformations are only possible at scale when you do things like that. So important to understand as you look for any technology that talks about being a big data technology, there's enough in the market that can do one thing right if you were to draw a spider chart. And if you really needed only one, there's enough available today. But the market is just beginning for being able to do 5 at a decent pace, right? And do all of these. And there's other ways to slice this as well. But this goes beyond the traditional 3 V's, if you will, in how people look at big data. Important thing there was context across all of this is most important. So let's talk about why I'm here, why SAP is here for a minute. Right? We sort of set the stage for why is big data important, what it is as a term. So here's where we talk a little bit about SAP HANA, something SAP launched about 3.5, 4 years ago. It's a platform 3 years ago. And we started there's a program that we started specifically for startups about 2 years ago to build on this platform. So an in-memory, columnar, distributor. Actually, I can spend another day on this entire slide. I can go into as much detail as you want in any of these bullets, right? Distributor. I had the good fortune of bringing this technology to market. It was a project. A science project inside our engineering organization and inside an innovation organization that we were working with in a university out of Germany, HPI, Hasso-Plattner Institute, and bringing that, what was called NewDB, bringing that to market became HANA, and this is what it has grown. Actually, I have to say, when I spoke I don't talk about the revenue number too often, but that was 0 to billion in about 18 months. 18 months or a little over 18 months, between 18 to 24 months. When I was speaking at the Spark Summit, before I went up, I was talking to Jan, who's from Databricks, the CEO, and he looked at the slides and he said, you know what, forget everything else. You want people to pay attention, just talk to them about your revenue number. All the big data companies in the world put together haven't made that much money. So I thought, okay, that's fair. So I kept the number up, and it's actually very relevant to this conference because it talks about scaling the innovation. We went from, and SAP is a large organization. Being able to do this inside SAP took a special kind of team, special kind of people who did this grassroots. It was completely under the radar for a long time. And by the time it got momentum and by the time everybody else in the company also saw what was going on, it was too late to stop it. That's the way I'd like to put it. It was something that didn't come down from board strategy meetings. It was purely a grassroots movement. And the way we got it in front of customers. We had the luxury of having a lot of customers. We picked few friends and family that would actually look at the data. So the first conference where we launched it, unlike most conferences, that all the customers who gave the testimonial, it was just recording their reaction after they had seen the platform work on their data. That's it. That was our requirement. It had to be real. It had to be something they had seen on their data. And I think after the 5th video was played at the conference, the tweets were coming. Okay, stop. I get it. We get it that it's real. We get it that it exists, and it's because we had started talking about it before, and people were like, "Is this thing real? Can it actually do what you say it does?" I can spend lots of time on this. The 4,100 customers is what SAP HANA has, and we have 1,700 startups that are signed up for the program. We'll talk a little bit about that. This is what I like to call my Formula One slide. This is not us. This is you guys. Right? It's our platform to deliver applications like the types that you have not seen before or not been able to do before because of the way we do the technology. But it's your imagination. I don't know if we've managed to fit all the numbers on this, but these are logos of all the startups that are signed up for the startup program. So if you're a startup, or if you're looking, or if you hit a wall in something that you're doing on your platform, or you're starting out and you have a good idea of the product you're building, you have a pilot product already, make sure you check out the Startup Focus booth and talk to Ron and Danielle, who are both here, and make sure you get educated a little more. It's on startups.saphana.com if you need more information as well. So what does that mean in terms of scale for the startups? We talked about 1,700 as a number. Let's talk about how we've scaled this program. It's now 2 years. It's a global program. Started out again grassroots. Started out our first startup forum that we did was in Palo Alto. We had a very interesting way of starting this. We actually controlled who we took in, and we are still. So this 1,700 number that you see of startups that have signed in, if I was chasing a number, I could have easily had that tripled or more. So we did startup forums where that was our recruitment forum, but we brought startups in to come pitch to us, just like they would pitch to a VC, why they should be building their application on HANA in 4 minutes or less. Right? So it was and then we would have, I think I remember the Berlin one I went to, we had 65 startups coming in and we broke a record, we accepted 17. Normally we used to accept about 6 or 7. Right? So then as we worked through the program, we've discovered that a lot of startups in the technical enablement phase or technical building phase have other issues that happen. The funding dries out or something else happens. So in short, we've been very careful about who we select, and we have 1,700. At the same time, we're always looking for a few good startups to add to this mix. Right? And if you have a big data problem, I think you have solving an issue. The thing that we do here is most of these startups, 60% of them work outside the purview of a traditional SAP solution, which tells you the platform goes way beyond what you know an SAP can been interested or has been doing. I can talk ad nauseum about some of the customers who are using us as well for different things like short noise analysis, simulating earthquakes so that they can figure out where the propensity of drilling is. Now that's not something you would have ever expected SAP to do. But we are in there because we know the oil and gas company, and then they bring us in to solve this problem for them, given that we now have the technology. So the 60,000 dedicated SAP customers is largely our customer base that for those who want to sell through our base and channels. So the things we do is like an incubator. We take no equity. we do not provide any direct funding, but we provide an introduction and work with our sister concern, SAP Ventures, that has just recently changed the name to Sapphire Ventures. But we also work with other VCs, and that's one of the things I'm putting in. And then we provide complete enablement on the platform, uh, technical enablement. HANA is available, by the way, on AWS, so and for 99 cents an hour. And then Amazon charges some stuff for the infrastructure. But that's for, we take no money in development. You make money. When you make money, we make money. This is a program that is run from product development. I'm part of product development, so it's not part of the usual. Training comes directly from the product managers and the developers and the people in my program. And then we enable a lot of my startups are pre-money, pre-revenue. So we enable them on the market side. How do you work with an SAP? How do you work with other organizations? Most importantly, when you go into other enterprises to sell your solution, how do you avoid the professional tie? Because sometimes you'll spend your forever in ever try to sell to government or to an airplane or airline organization or airplane manufacturers. If you've not done that round before, you can get enamored by the big names, but a lot of startups have died trying to do that. And it's important to know how to maneuver across all these. And I want to talk about 2 or 3 of our startups just to give you an example of the kinds of things they do. And the one closest to my heart is what Convergence CT does. They take breast cancer data, right? And this is now, again, not traditional anything you've ever heard SAP ever do. But these are our startups. This is their imagination. Take breast cancer data. They take all the data that is available. They take electronic health records. So they take data from radiology, the imaging data, which is unstructured, binary, blobs, all of that. Be able to take that and mash that up into one data model along with the EHR. And they do a bunch of things with it. One is compliance across medical. So that's how they've decided to monetize and go to market. They do compliance across medical practices. And so a medical practice then knows I have a stage 3 patient and they should have gone through these, they should have gone through either a chemo or these kind of treatments, and they've not had that, or that from the time they've had the biopsy to the time of the first meeting, if we can cut that down, the first time the doctor sees them after the biopsy, if we can cut down that meeting, we can save lives. This starts getting to the point where it humanizes the whole thing, to the point where I know cancer is a word where everybody says it hits somebody and hits somebody else, but the day it hits you or your family, this thing becomes terribly, terribly important, right? And it's important the other thing that we're working on with Stanford and some of the genome analysis project is to do genome splicing on the platform, which allows you to add more markers and still get the answer back within a short time. Today, I think if you do that to try to figure out whether a stage 3 patient is is eligible or should do stage 4 kind of clinical trial, which is only allowed otherwise if you're metastasizing. Today, it takes about 6 to 7 weeks to come back with that answer. With what we're working on with Stanford, that answer should come back within half an hour or less while the patient is still in the doctor's office. And that's a huge, huge, huge benefit. So I've talked a lot about Convergence CT. Trufa, now come back to something closer to more the enterprise business. What they're looking at is they're taking all the data that they can find from an organization, this is about working capital, taking working capital, putting it on an aspect, putting that on an iPad, making that available to the CFO in the CFO's office, where they can now manage their finances. They can say, if I shave off 1% here, what is the impact? If I shave off, being able to do all that with all the historical data they have, all the way down to real time. This is their books and records at the minute. How can they manage the entire work? And this is huge for enterprises. And they're selling it as a subscription. It's a pretty decently done product. It's running. All these guys are starting to make money, and that's the brilliant part of the program as well. Imaginistics. I know my time may be running out, so I want to make sure that I spend just enough time telling you what it is. Shape-based search. Think about what that does, right? 3D, 2D models, what that does for product lifecycle management, what that does for supply chain, where does it apply? Aerospace and defense, where you have unique shapes, and in real time being able to search for shapes. And if a shape doesn't exist, being able to add one into the shape library. And yes, it's great for where the shapes are unique. And then it becomes one of the characteristics that you want to manage when the shapes are the same, just like a soda can. How would you know the difference between a Pepsi soda can and a Coke soda can, etc.? So it might not be great for those, but it requires image recognition in addition to the shape. But for the unique shapes, and especially managing a worldwide shape library that people can then build their products from and then have other logistics issues all tied into it and update the shapes in real time as you see a new shape. So this is an ever-growing library. Let's and there's lots more where this came from. So encourage you to take a look at it. And I know we are in the technical track, and if anybody wants to try the technical prowess outside of my time, I'm happy to spend some time with you guys going deep down into what it means to have an in-memory columnar database that allows you to develop applications, allows you to do transactions and analytics in real time together without having separate systems, allows you to do planning, simulation, text, geospatial, graph, machine learning. Let's pick a few more. And it's all in one place for you. All right? Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot.
So this is one of those talks that was kind of self-contained, and there was nobody that said, "I don't get it," or "What? Tell me more about this." And we give them all your LinkedIn, your Twitter, and a YouTube video of yours. It might be karaoke, it might be from another conference. I'm not sure, but they're all in the chat room, so everybody can contact you for follow-up, and of course, find you.
If it's karaoke, God help you, and I hope nobody has ever required, because I don't think I've ever done it.
I couldn't tell, but thank you very much.
All right, thanks.